If you've ever been awake at 2 a.m., then 3 a.m., then 4 a.m., and your autistic child is wide awake, you know how exhausting it can be. And the frustrating part, a parent will give you advice and tell you, maybe change their bedtime to a little bit earlier. And you're thinking, have you met my child? Because for a lot of kids on the spectrum, sleep is such a struggle. But before you jump into the medication route, there are 5 simple strategies that have worked for our family over the years that I want to share with you today. So let's dive in. Hey, I'm Genevieve, mom to an amazing child on the spectrum. If you're new here, welcome. Here, we talk about real-life autism challenges, tools to help autism families, and I share things that I wish I knew along the journey and things that have worked for us. So today, we're talking sleep. So before we jump into the solutions, it's important to really understand something. A lot of kids on the spectrum aren't refusing to sleep. Their brains just process sleep a little differently. Some are really sensitive to light, and others may be sensitive to sound that we barely even hear. Some have difficulty transitioning from one activity to another, from being awake to maybe being asleep. So if you're blaming yourself, please stop. This isn't about bad parenting. It's about finding the right supports for your child. But here's what's fascinating. Sometimes the smallest changes can make the biggest differences. So let's start with one of the most simplest strategies. Strategy number 1, create a predictable sleep routine. Imagine trying to fall asleep in a different way every single night. One day, it's screen time before bed. The next, it's a bath before bed. And the next, a book before bed. For a lot of kids on the spectrum, predictability is equivalent to safety. A consistent bedtime routine helps signal, okay, we're getting ready for sleep now. In our family, this is what it looks like. Bath, pajamas on, brush and floss, read a book, best and hardest part of the day, and then lights out. It's not about the routine, it's that it's the same every single night. And if your child responds well to visuals, a visual schedule is incredibly useful here. Because instead of hearing, okay, bedtime for the 100th time, they know what's coming next. Strategy number 2. Look at the sensory environment. Here's a question. Would you sleep well if someone was pointing a flashlight in your face at night? Probably not. So for a lot of kids on the spectrum, they're very sensitive to light, sound, temperature, smells, or even textures. A room that feels completely normal to you and I can be incredibly overwhelming to kids on the spectrum. So if you already haven't, here are some things that you can experiment with. Blackout curtains, white noise machine, cooler temperatures in the room, different bedding textures, removing blinking electronics, or even changing their pajamas. You know what? Years ago, our child was having a really hard time falling asleep, and we kind of tried everything, only to realize that the tags or the texture of the pajamas our child was wearing was super uncomfortable and was causing them to wake up every few hours. Once we changed that, things changed and it ended up being a game changer. Sometimes the smallest things make the biggest differences. Strategy number 3. Increase daytime movement. Think about how you feel after sitting for the whole day. Sometimes the body is tired, but the brain isn't. Many therapists and sleep strategists recommend physical activity during the day. Walking, running, biking, trampoline time at the playground. The goal isn't to exhaust your child, it just helps them develop a healthy sleep-wake rhythm. And interestingly, this actually helped us so much with emotional regulation and made our bedtime routines much, much smoother. Strategy number 4, reduce evening screen exposure. Okay, I know this is going to be a controversial one, and at the end of the day, you do what's right for your family, no judgment. But this is something a lot of families, they don't want to hear, because at the end of a very long day, the screen can be a lifesaver, and honestly, sometimes it is. But screens right before bed can make falling asleep so much harder, especially highly stimulating videos, games, and fast-moving content. You're expecting your child to go from 100 miles an hour right to sleep, which is a no-go because the brain, it needs a gradual landing. If I were to give you an analogy, think of bedtime like landing an airplane. You don't go from cruising altitude to the runway instantly. There's a gradual descent, and the same thing can happen with your brain. For us on school nights, we replaced any screens with more calming activities like reading or playing cards, and this strategy really made a meaningful difference. Strategy number 5, talking about the best and hardest part of your day. This final strategy takes time, but the earlier you start, the better. We started this years ago. During our child's bedtime routine, we started talking about the best part of the day and the hardest part of the day. If you think about it, you as an adult, if you had a really hard part of your day, it's really hard to fall asleep. You start replaying conversations, you lay awake at night. The same can happen for our autistic kids. Sometimes maybe they can't even communicate it, but they lie awake thinking about potentially what has happened during the day. And for a lot of kids on the spectrum, they do have higher anxiety and may even have those ruminating thoughts. This is a great strategy that you can use to help potentially alleviate any sleep problems that you may having with your child. Here's how it works for our family. I usually go first. I'll talk about the best part of my day and a hard part of my day. And then I ask my child if they want to go next. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes we get conversation, sometimes we get nothing. It just depends. And sometimes they do tell me what a hard part of their day is, and I do walk them through it. And sometimes my child will simply ask for a hug or a little bit of extra time together, and I realize that maybe they had a hard day and they just can't communicate it. What surprised me most is this isn't really about sleep. It's about allowing your child to put the day down before they go to bed. For our family, it's become a very meaningful part of their bedtime routine, so I'm hoping it can help your family too. So if your autistic child struggles with sleep, remember, you don't have to try all these strategies all at once. Pick a strategy, try it consistently. If it doesn't work, try a new strategy and see what works for your family. Because sleep struggles are rarely solved by a single magic trick. They're often solved by finding a combination of supports for your child. And I'd love to hear from you. What's the biggest sleep struggle you're facing with your autistic child right now? Please leave a comment. Your experience might help another parent who's awake at 3 a.m. watching this video while everyone else is asleep in their house. And I just want you to know you're not alone in this, and neither is your child. I'll see you next week on the Autism Parent Guide.